At our just concluded General Assembly, we have had as one of the main topics the Red Cross, Red Crescent contribution to the ongoing debate on a post-2015 Millennium Development Agenda. The General Assembly, in fact, was preceded and started in many ways with a Global Youth Conference where this already was a topic, and the thoughts and ideas of the young people were very much pulled into the General Assembly and expressed there. And out of the General Assembly debate, we have been able to draw up a declaration, we're calling it, or the Assembly called it, that includes the commitments, the views of how this agenda, the post-2015 development agenda, should look like from a Red Cross, Red Crescent perspective, and what specific commitments we as Red Cross, Red Crescent would want to make. So I'm happy to share with you the main substance, together with Ashanta, of this declaration that has just been signed off an hour ago or so. So our General Assembly, which convenes national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies around the world, commits to engage in the development and implementation of a universal development agenda to replace the existing Millennium Development Goals when they expire in 2015. Over the past 15 years, the MDGs have contributed to improvements in the lives of countless vulnerable people across the globe. Their simple, concise, and measurable nature galvanized action from governments, the UN system, the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, civil society, and the private sector. And the collective efforts of all these actors have resulted very clearly in progress in eradicating extreme poverty or reducing it, and hunger, reducing the burden of communicable diseases, and improving access to safe water. Yet, it has to be acknowledged that progress has touched some more than others, with many of the most vulnerable people and communities left behind. Persistent and rising inequality, climate change, and increasing exposure to disasters, violence, and conflict have significantly hampered Millennium Development Goal progress and undermined the resilience of vulnerable people and their communities. And unfortunately, specific goals on education, gender equality, maternal and child health, sanitation, and environmental sustainability are woefully off track. Now, strengthening resilience, our national societies are saying, should be a central component of the new development framework. Tackling inequality and working inclusively with the most vulnerable should be at the heart of the new agenda. And they are calling on governments to lead an ambitious approach in the next generation, of goals, where it will be crucial that we all work hard towards eradicating poverty, extreme poverty, and hunger within the next generation. Ensure universal access to safe water, sanitation, and quality education, empower women and girls, and explicitly endorse the principle of universal health coverage. Governments are also called to lead decisively in taking action to protect the environment for future generations, address the negative impacts of climate change, and strengthen the resilience of vulnerable people, their communities and livelihoods to disasters and crises, food insecurity, and health-related risks. Without a renewed sense of urgency on these, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent fears that disasters and crises will hinder progress towards sustainable development for years to come. Our national societies recognize the unique value and contribution of volunteers, including the more than 15 million Red Cross and Red Crescent volunteers who are critical to enabling access to health services, promoting social inclusion and a culture of nonviolence, and developing local sustainable solutions and responses in the face of disasters and crises. And with that, let me hand over to Ashanta.
The voices of volunteers and those communities they work with should inform the design and implementation of the post-2015 development agenda. thereby ensuring that goals, targets, and indicators relates directly to those whose lives they will inform. Young humanitarians should actively engage to influence the future they want and actively work on it. Women and young people must be given central attention for their irreplaceable role as sources of information, enablers, and drivers in sustainable development and humanitarian action. The ethical use of technology and innovation in advancing sustainable development must be considered carefully in the post-development agenda. IFRC, through the 2013 World Disaster Report, notes that partnerships between humanitarian organizations, governments, and private sector companies will be crucial in the post-2015 agenda to harnessing the full potential of technology and to improve the resilience of affected communities. Red Cross and Red Crescent national societies will use their auxiliary status to bring the voices of vulnerable people they serve to the attention of their national governments, encouraging them to strengthen the resilience of their communities. In contributing to realizing our own mission to save lives and change minds, we will significantly contribute to the post-2015 agenda's eventual implementation. We are exploring 3 overarching commitments to support the sustainable development. Firstly, in order to reduce the devastating impact of disasters on sustainable development, we commit to enabling that every community in high-risk areas will have a capacity to prepare for and respond to disasters. Secondly, in order to contribute to the realization of universal health care, we commit to there being a volunteer in every community that we will work with who is responsible for facilitating access to basic health care. And thirdly, in order to ensure development can be sustained domestically, we commit to continuing efforts to sustain national Red Cross, Red Crescent societies, to be trusted partners and effective auxiliaries to their governments in the humanitarian and development work.